All right, fellas, welcome back again to another episode of Tactical Enlightenment. Our YouTube channel is dedicated to all things Bannerlord related, but especially Battlefield Command and Advanced. Never mind. We don't have any Battlefield Command or Advanced Tactics in this episode because, again, I'm running around the battlefield fucking around. Zuvan, as you can see, very decked out high-level character. We're simply fucking around here. Somebody said they wanted to see an Army of One series. So in sort of some of my spare time, we're farting around with this. I imagine these episodes will be 15 to 20 minutes each, featuring a couple battles each time. These are purely exhibition. And to be perfectly honest, I find these relatively too simple compared to the very chaotic big battles. Just challenging 40 or 50 opponents in Bannerlord. There's some tiny amount of brain stimuli involved here, but compared to moving around big armies in real time using dynamic tactics, I just find these a lot less complex, right? A lot less stimulative to my brain. I'm one of those guys who's a voracious reader, a voracious consumer of information. And while there's a little bit of fun, just the physical aspects of these, right, and trying to deal with the very different challenges of fighting by yourself, I'm not going to make a big long series out of these. These are purely exhibitions. I guess if you want to say there's value to this, it's showing the exceptional power of a high-level character, but also spec'd correctly. I get a lot of people asking, what is the best spec of characters in Bannerlord? And I think that's how I'll occupy some of the moments in these battles here. We're just starting off this battle, or at least this episode, with, I look like about 50 Aserai forces, and they're holding up their shields, right? They're doing their best to hold up their shields, but when you have, 300 throwing skill and 3 large bags of javelins, you kind of turn your nose up and snicker at people holding your shields, right? Your shields get blown up by these javelins. I don't even have to aim for their feet like you do as an archer. You can just fucking blow up their shield and mow these guys down. And it's probably one of the most overpowered perks in all of Bannerlord. So I think I will, use that as a little bit of a topic for this episode here. Talk a little bit about character specking, talk about what I would recommend, talk about some of the things that I have learned. By no means am I like a character spec expert because I haven't played like 15 different campaigns. I'm sure there's guys watching this who have played a lot more campaigns and tried a lot wider variety of units. I have observed a bunch of different styles and seen the effectiveness of them. And again, to give the fellow a shout out, he's a regular subscriber and commenter on the channel. And by the way, that's not a cheat code. I'm just using the RTS mod to speed up portions of these battles here. I don't want anybody to freak out. I hit a little button and all of a sudden everything's accelerated here. And I'm doing that because I'm going to try to collect all the javelins over there. I don't probably need to do this, but it's just one of the sort of techniques you can employ in these battles to sort of get ahead of the enemy. It's not like I'm running past all their arrows that are shooting me. I'm still vulnerable. I'm just doing this so I can save you guys a little bit of time in these episodes. But the fellow's name is Angry Goldfish, and he has a Bannerlord channel where he has episodes including startup. Well, I'm not dropping my glaive, that's for sure. I might drop my shield here. But to finish that point, so Angry Goldfish runs... with his main character, most of the time he runs a glaive, primarily a stabbing spear with a shield, and then bow and arrow, and he's highly effective. So much to the point that there's no question that would be a more optimal route. Actually, speaking of routing, these guys are routing for a 1 on 100 or a 1 on 50. Why? Because you can block, right? You have a shield. Not only do you have a shield, but you have a killing weapon. So in one moment, a split second later, you're defending, and then a split second later, you're stabbing the enemy, right? You go very quickly from being a very mobile, hard to hit a shield warrior on a horse to stabbing the enemy at high range of speed. Of course, this was a classical sort of, if you want to call it skill perk, a skill perk of the aristocracy, right? They would run around on a horse with a shield and spear. They might have a short sword or something like that in their bag, but it's very effective to be on a horse and stab a guy with your spear going 25, 30 miles an hour. Your horse does damage if it hits him. And you can see, of course, the value of javelins here, just tearing up their shields. But this is a spec that I have never really played much in a Bannerlord campaign, except at the beginning. If you wanted to have a lot more success in Bannerlord doing something like this, where you're 1 on 40, 1 on 50, 1 on 80, that would be, I think, the overall best skill perk is you would choose a shield, a spear, preferably one that can be swung also as two-handed, and then a bow and arrow, right? Because then you can do it all. You can swing your glaive at a distance and mow down the enemy. You can whip out your spear and shield against a lot of archers and handle those guys no problem. And of course, your bow and arrow on a horse. Well, Genghis Khan and his ancestors, his relatives, his children showed all of Eurasia that for a very long time was an undefeatable strategy. A mobile archer is quite deadly on the battlefield, especially before the advent of firearms. All right, so all that said, that's basically what I consider sort of the best perks, best skill set if you want to create like a singular powerful warrior. Would be a shield, spear, bow, and arrow. I like javelins for a bunch of different reasons. Number one, and I've seen battles literally where this fellow, Mr. Goldfish, is just dicing up the enemy. But if he fights an enemy that has lots and lots of shields, it devolves into a sort of slower, methodical process where he has to ride around in circle and deal with all these different projectiles and guys holding up shields. And of course, his bow and arrow is less effective, and stabbing them with your spear while they're holding up shields is also less effective. Now, usually he's still able to win, right? With that kind of the skill peck, it definitely is skill setup. It still works because eventually you just find a moment where the enemy's vulnerable and you can whittle them down. Sorry there, I had an emergency. That is a thing. You'll notice these little glitches in my video. I had to run an emergency. I am a full-time firefighter, and every once in a while, you'll literally notice a break in the video that seems sort of strange. I will try to regain my thought process here, but I just ran for about 45 minutes on a medical call. This is just part of the gimmick on the channel, if you want to call it a gimmick or the irregularity of it. I am a full-time firefighter. And sometimes right in the middle of battles, I pause the game, I pause my recording, I pause the music, dash out the door, jump into the ladder truck that I'm a member of, and then I come back and try to resume these. In this case, of course, you're well aware that was a break because I'm telling you it was a break, but a lot of times I'm able to do it seamlessly enough that people probably can't really tell, right? It probably seems like a little glitch in the Matrix. Let me try to regain that point. I did watch like a minute of my previous recording before I had before I started to play this again, and I was talking about the different types of skill perks and strategies. This Mr. Angry Goldfish fella, one of the weaknesses to a shield, spear, and bow and arrow character is that your enemy oftentimes will be holding up shields. They will be vigorously defending, and that's where the javelins come in, right? Not only can you kill guys on horse, but guys holding up their shield, once you get the 250 skill perk, you pretty much just snicker. It's almost like a game exploit because the AI doesn't understand that just like that their shields are worthless, and so they will come directly at you, straight up to you, and you can just kill them with your javelins. I'm in trouble in this battle here by a pretty significant margin. They have a lot of troops left, and this again shows one of the weaknesses of not having a shield. Now you can have a sword, shield, and 2 javelins. That's a very viable option, but with less javelins, obviously, you've got considerably less killing power. So anyways, what I was saying is it's definitely a problem with the AI that they don't understand that just running up to you with their shield when you have 250 plus throwing skill is not going to work. They will continue to do that, and you could literally have 30 legionnaires in a row. As long as they were spaced out by enough and you're backpedaling, you could kill all of them while they held their shield up. For any other characters, perk, spec, I don't know what to call it, that would be an incredibly difficult situation. If you have 300 throwing skill, you just literally kill one guy after another, and they just feed themselves to your conveyor belt. All right, so this is going to be a bit of a challenge here, right? I'm down to, 15% health, maybe even 10%. It's a little sliver. I've got a bunch of fucking archers shooting at me. We do have the perfect fire arrow mod. That's why their arrows are on fire. It's a terrific mod, especially at night. It almost feels a little bit like cheating because you can see the projectiles incoming. That was not really That's definitely not the intent of why I'm doing this. I'm not doing it to exploit the AI and make this easier. I just happen to have the mod loaded and fighting a night battle here. Obviously, if we're fighting 50, 60 enemies over and over again, I'm not looking to make the game easier, right? Otherwise, I would just fight in an army and crush everybody. These are just for exhibition, and it's kind of a cool effect actually to see flaming arrows coming at you in a battle like this. So we're trying to be strategic here, right? We're trying to hem them into a circle, because then they're going to have a hard time shooting, and a very powerful polearm is probably the best weapon for situations right like this. I can just run around on my horse, knock these guys around, and swing this very, very fast polearm, and we're probably going to be able to pull this out. It's very close. One more arrow will pretty much take me out, but they're also close to routing. In fact, some of them, it looks like they just did rout. The enemy doesn't like being carved apart by horsemen. They can't shoot at this stage. They're either out of ammo, or it's because of the fact that I'm right up on them. Most of them aren't shooting anymore. And this battle is over. These guys have routed, and that portion of it is over. So I have character spec and character weapon loadout episodes. Guys ask for it all the time. I would ask you fellas, please use the search function with 300 episodes on Bannerlord at this stage. I haven't covered it all, but I've covered 90% of the material. Certainly, I've covered all the material that guys ask questions for on a regular basis. The questions that everybody seems to have. Of course, you can gather that I've already touched on these subjects. Guys are like, what's the ideal character spec? Well, I'm not sure if I know, but I have some theories, and of course, I'm talking about that in this episode. I'll talk a little bit more about the weapon loadout as well. I think we'll try to find at least one more fight here. Of course, I got to heal up for a little bit. I'm at 3%, so I might even, every once in a while, again, you'll just see me, the two episodes will be spliced together, because I'll run to a castle or something like that and rest. Now, I'm trying not to waste a lot of time here healing. I'm already at 37%, so I think we'll just run around the map here and look for a force, but I'm going to heal just a little bit here, hiding up in the hills, right? I'm like Wormtongue from Lord of the Rings. I've got my sack of rice, and I've abandoned the Rohirrim to eat my rice up in the hills like a coward. All jokes aside, right? I want to have at least 50% health, fighting 50, 60, 70 enemies at a time. All right, so polearms. Let me cover that for a few minutes here. Polearms are, especially sliceable polearms, are an incredibly deadly weapon in Bannerlord. On a horse, you just ride around slicing heads off. Range is one of the biggest things, right? You want to have range on your enemy, because if you have to get really close, you risk... Oh shit, there's a huge army down here. You risk them hitting you with their weapon, right? If you have to get really close, you'd better have a shield, or you'd better have an incredibly fast weapon and know what you're doing. Your polearm is something I recommend for relatively newer players, right? As soon as you can get a glaive or something like that with like 100 or 150 polearm skill, start to practice with it, get your spacing down, understand your timing and how far away you can still kill an enemy, and I think suddenly you're going to start to have a lot more success, because you don't have to be very close to the enemy, right? You can ride around on a horse where you're hard to catch, you're hard to shoot, and then of course you can just swing your glaive at the enemy at a long distance, and rack up kills from a relative position of safety. Of course, as your skill increases, your polearm, your riding skill increases, not only will the damage increase, but your proficiency, the speed of how fast you swing it, etc., etc. It becomes a very lethal combination. I think if Zuvan in a lot of my big battles, and I'm just looking for a small opponent here. I'm not trying to fight 300. I don't think that's going to be a thing in this series. Maybe a shield, spear, and bow and arrow guy can do that, but not my character. If you're out there, if Zuvan's out there fighting in big battles, and I didn't use javelins at all, I still think he could rack up 100, 150 kills every episode, every battle, because you just slice through a guy every 3 seconds with your polearm. And with good armor, maneuverability on a horse, you can just absolutely rack up massive amounts of kills. I think I'll include this part here just because I think that commentary is necessary. I do understand that I'm kind of wasting your time here running around the battlefield. I think we'll finally attack a caravan here. This is not going to be easy, right? This is 50 units. Caravans are definitely designed to be able to handle 20 or 30 bandits. And I'm going to take them on here with one bandit, right? Not exactly... the most optimal strategy. Now, I do have a full health bar, and this is a ranged attack caravan unit. You can see they have 16 horse archers. It's Khazate, but it actually looked like Aserai, so it's kind of like Aserai units with Khazate coloring. I presume that's because the Khazate in this instance have an Aserai city under their control. That's why it's this amalgamation. And horse archers are tough, right? Horse archers run around, just what I'm saying. I'm recommending you get a bow and a horse because it's hard to catch them. And of course, you can kill the enemy at a distance, shooting them while you're mobile. You know, this is a very effective strategy, and this is another thing that I definitely recommend for new players, right, or newish players. Once you get a bow and arrow on a horse and you get a decent level of skill, I mean, talk about firing from a position of safety, right? You could fight the whole battle where no one even ever swings their weapon at you and do exactly what these guys are doing to me, just sticking me full of pins. You see the difference between, of course, a javelin and these bow and arrows is I'm one-shotting everything. And if they hold a shield up, they're even more dead because generally you move slower when you're holding your shield. If these units come at me holding their shield, I welcome that, right? That's actually better than them shooting me like this. And again, I know I'm mentioning this one guy over and over again. That's because this guy's specialty is essentially fighting very small battles, fighting a lot of jousting 1-on-100 matches. In fact, I'm almost certain part of his channel, he has a bunch of different battles where he's fighting 1 versus 100. I'm not saying this guy's like the best at that out there. Just saying that that's one of the guys out there that I've seen who demonstrates superior proficiency at this tactic, this skill. This is not something that I feel I have an exceptional ability at. Although obviously I have a lot of gameplay right under these circumstances. That's probably something you guys also don't notice. If you hear me rambling, speaking 500 words per minute, and then you hear a silence, a lot of times that's me hitting my little mute button so I can cough. I've tried not to cough in your guys' ears. Of course, I'm narrating these as I play, and so I'm doing this little dance where one hand is literally holding on the movement buttons, and I'm using, like an off hand to push the mute button on my speaker at the same time as swing my weapon here and ride around the battlefield. It's just one of those things as a narrator, right? These things are going to happen. I've had a handful of battles, of course, where I had to take a piss, and the same thing. You'll see me, there'll be a little tiny glitch in the video, and that's probably me pausing, running into the other room, doing my pee-pee dance, taking care of business, and coming back. You guys get a little inner working of the series here. This feels necessary to me because I don't know, there might be some guys who just love this shit. Obviously, I get requests to do this. I would not do this probably a lot without requests. There definitely feels like a little narcissistic element here, trying to take 1 on 50, right? There's no I in team, and indeed these episodes are purely I. This is it feels inappropriate in some ways for me to be showing these episodes for a bunch of different reasons. Partly because I'm not that good at it, right? There are definitely better players, definitely better, more talented players at doing this kind of thing. Even, like I said before, better character specs. But we'll do a few of these. We will feed the algorithm monster. If these are popular, of course, I'll probably make a few more episodes. And at least I'll try to have some colorful commentary so that you guys aren't bored out of your skulls watching me fight some meaningless caravan battle here in the middle of the steppe. Just like the previous battle against the Botanians, once you get these guys sort of hemmed in and their numbers are reduced to a reasonable amount, you can just start running circles around them and cutting them down with your glaive. Let me talk about that real quick. I think I can squeeze that in before this battle ends. Let's talk about polearms. If you have a smith, right? If you either have a smith or my character's grandfather was a smith, making glaives is an option, right? And it's not just an option, it's a really good option. Now, unfortunately, I don't have a smith anymore, and people always ask, how do you build that polearm? I can't unfortunately tell you, but I can tell you it's relatively easy once you get, I think, about 200 smithing skill. And what I mean by that is that as long as you're using the right components, and you guys, obviously, if you're a smith, you can play around with it over and over again to build a really nasty polearm. Now, I do feel myself somewhat of an expert at polearms, at least the swingable type, because I've used about 10 of his different models. And here's what I can tell you, what I've found after thousands of hours of riding a horse with a polearm. There's the main two constituents you really want. The main two things you really want to pay attention to are speed and length. The damage is going to be one shot in most cases anyways. You're going to mangle a lot of guys with one shot on a horse anyhow. So what I would tell you is aim for a length between 150 and 170 and a speed of 85 or greater. And the reason is simple. You want to be swinging fast, because if someone else swings the weapon faster than you, you either got to parry or you're going to get hit. And the other part is the length. If your length is too long, it takes too long to swing, of course. You can have like a polearm that's 280 or something like that. It looks hilarious swinging this big long stick. But if you have a speed and a length like in the 160 range, there's the ability to hit a horse rider from behind, even if you're directly behind him. That's very important. And also having that speed. So speed of about 85 plus and a length of about, 150, 160 minimum. All right, so I'm going to wrap this up. Let me know what you think of this series, fellas. I will do maybe one more of these unless you guys demand more. And I will talk to you friends next time.